Welcome to part 2 of the restoration of the Delta 6-inch jointer. Got all the paint stripped off, got all the surfaces cleaned up, got everything masked off, and we're ready for a primer. We'll put the primer on, then we'll paint it, and then we'll put the rest of it together. And painting is done. If masking everything off is one of the most tedious, painful, boring parts of the process, removing the masking and seeing a nice contrast between the metal and the paint is probably my favorite part. Let these dry for a couple days, at least 2, before we start trying to put this together. If not, we're just going to scratch the paint. No reason to rush it at this point. We're going to also put some paint in the embossed areas there and bring that back to life. One of the other tasks was to fix the chute, and when I looked at it, it was really a lot rougher than I thought. So I decided not to try metalworking that back out and instead make a new one. So I took this, I bent it back out flat so I could get an idea of what this really looked like. Got some poster board. Trace that out on the poster board, and then took that over to my 3-in-1. Cut it to shape and bent it, and ended up with this as a result. Let me get a good look at it. I changed it just a tad to make the angle a little bit more severe, right at 45 degrees, so that the chips would come down the chute a little bit better. So that's ready for paint. That'll go in the stand, and then we can start putting everything back. All right, ready to put the tables back on. Fortunately, this hopefully will go back on about the same way it came apart. Put this screw in, put the long bolt in, leave this thing down in the bottom, then thread it on before you put the rest of it in, and then that'll fit. If you remember, these rotate up, and these are screwed into the base right there. One detail to note, this is the out feed table. It has the smaller screws. These are actually threaded a different size. This one's a little bit smaller than the one on the in-feed side. I'm not sure if you can see that. So that's about the only thing I noticed that was different. I've got I got some grease on these. Should be ready to go back together. You can see the gib goes on this side. You can see the screws for it. We put the gibs on here. Hopefully you can just slide these tables on, and hope that goes easy. One helpful note, you'll want to make sure that you have that base already rotated over. If you can tell, if you don't, when you get it on, you won't have enough clearance to move it over. And also, don't forget to put the gib in place. Okay, got the first one on. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but you want to bring them on from the top, and they go down. And try the second one, hopefully it clears. Okay, probably can't do this with one hand, but I'm going to try. So, you can see I've got the table here, and I'm sliding it down, and the gib, I'll try to lean over to it. You can see right there, you just want to hold that with your finger as you set the top on, so you can hold it in place as it comes down. Okay, so I got these on, and I just had this funny feeling that I probably was going to be taking them back off, and looking at it, trying to figure out what I possibly could have missed to do that. And then I remembered right here, that special little fitting that reaches in and grabs a gib. And pick that up from here. And that's this guy right here. So he's supposed to be in there, and then he gets pulled this way, and this part goes against the gib. So I might be able to slide these up a little bit. Actually, no, they're going to have to come back off. you get that in there, and that should hold it in. So we'll try this one more time. A little more detail on how this works. I probably did not have to take it out. I now know that. It goes on this way. This pushes, it's angled this way, just like the top of the dovetail. So this comes in, and as you screw that handle down on the outside, it pushes in, and then it pushes against the gibs. So that's really, that's how you're going to get, push it up there and hold that. And then you can just use the set screws, really or more, just to get it at the right position where you're going to use this to tighten it down. So you just want to make sure you have that in. This is going to go this way, and then hold that at the top as you slide the table in, and then keep it in position with your finger at the bottom. It goes in pretty easy. One other thing, I got some paint on here and paint in here. You want to clean that out so that this can slide in and out fairly easily. We got the tables back on, so now turn it back over, and it's just a matter of turning this in or out in order to get the screws to line up, or the holes to line up. And when you get that in place, you're going to take these, put those down in there, and tighten that down. Then I believe we can put the bearing holders in right here, and the screw down in there. Before we do all that, we got to get the bearings pressed on the blade holder. Going to put the bearings back on. I had to watch the video to see which end went where, because one bearing is bigger than the other one, but in hindsight it's pretty easy to figure out because the cases are different size. The big bearing goes in the big casing and the small bearing in the small casing. And the way you know which side is which is because one of these casings has a hole in it. That would be the drive side, so that it can come out the other side and have the pulley on it. So I took some of I had some burrs. I got those off with a sharpening stone, and then I put some anti-seize on both sides, and I'll press these on. Another note, the extended race part here goes in, facing against the cutter head, like so. So press those on and get it ready to go back. Okay, so nicely pressed on. I didn't have any trouble with these. Usually it's just getting something that will fit over the shaft and get on the right part of the bearing. This is not what I use, but I used a longer pipe because it was just the right diameter to fit on there, right bore. And put that, a much longer version of it, obviously, put that in the press and push that down, and did something similar to this side. And I got a little bit of a debate now. These cases, when I took them off, they were packed with grease. I'm pretty sure that these are sealed type bearings, and I don't think they're supposed to have any grease. But I'm a little hesitant not to put grease back in because it was in there. I've searched online and can't find anything on that. I guess in the late 30s they didn't expect you to be taking that apart. I don't know. I think I'm just going to put it in there. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. If anything, it might keep some dust out. So I'll put it in there for that. So I've got most of it back together now. In fact, just about all of it. One of the things that I was worried about when I got it, about the only thing I could find wrong, was that the fence would not stay square, and I couldn't figure out why that was not being adjusted right. I had thought that maybe there was something down in here that was jamming it up. Cleaned all that out, put it all back together, and now it's perfect. So I'm not completely sure what changed. It could be operator error. If you look at this right here, this is a pretty cool thing. It slides back and forth and it goes over either nut. And if you take it back to this position, that unscrews this nut. Hard to do with one hand. Once that's done, the fence can slide across the table, and you can see immediately that this pulls out. So when you tighten that back in, that pulls it back against the table nice and square. I think I had that part right, but what I didn't notice was if you slide it forward on this one, turn that to move the fence a little bit, the fence stays on these stop blocks in the angles unless you turn this over. So it could have been loose like this and I didn't know it, but if you move the fence here, now it comes back out down here at the bottom. So I think both of these have to be turned tight, and when it's turned tight, it locks this piece against that piece. This back nut pulls this whole thing tight against the table itself. So I think it may have just been operator error. I didn't really understand how that went together. So now it's back. I've got it on its base. I've got the motor down there. I've got it all hooked up. And I can put the blades in, except I've lost the blades. So I'll look around, try to find those, get the blades in, and we should be ready to make some chips. Alright, so I found the blades. They were in a box with some push blocks I bought, so that was a good place to keep them, if I could remember that. So I've also bought this tool to help set the knives. So I'm just following the directions that they have there. The first thing you do is to find top dead center. I used an old knife, and I put it here and worked that back and forth until it was just touching the top of the blade and moving it just a bit. I transferred that mark over. First I used a black Sharpie to get a nice thick line on there, and then I set my square on that, and then used a scribe, which went into the fence a little bit, but more importantly through the black line so I can see it very easy. So I'm going to go on and do the next step of this. Step 2 is pretty similar to step 1. I'm going to zoom in here. So if it'll focus right here, it's not focusing. Maybe just look there. There you can see it. So at the joiner pal's got a little line right here, and then I've got that on the line I scribed that transferred to the fence. You do the same thing for the back one. It's got another line in it there, and then that's on the back fence. So this helps you index it to where this is always going to be in the same position. Now you loosen up the screws here for the knife. Knife comes up. It's got magnets here, here, and here. That helps it stay level on this side, and then pull the knife up here, and you just tighten these screws and turn the head and do the next one. Some of the first cuts I've taken with it, I've done a few just to check things out. Actually, I've faced a lot down. And you can see I guess it's the new knives, but I mean, these are really how they're curled up. It's really just shavings coming off, so that's really nice. I varied the cut from anywhere to right now almost nothing, and I'm using that just to clean up 2 boards that I glued together. So rather than having to go and use a hand scraper to get that flush, I just ran it through because it really almost doesn't take anything off. In fact, if you come down, you can see where it's been faced. Those are just the original, just little imperfections in the board. I didn't face these before I put them together because I didn't have a joiner. So I'll probably run that through one more time, and that's done. So that saves so much work. It's not just having the joining capability, but also being able to clean up boards like this. Last item was to add the cover back over the blades. Really not sure exactly how this was supposed to work. I do know that this cotter pin here is correct. It did have a spring. This part here, I really no idea how that works. I put a very heavy gauge copper wire in there. That seems to work really well, holds it. It could also be bent to be removed. The moves back and forth quite easy. It's got a good return. and it's pretty easy to push it out of the way. So the cover's back on. It's on its base. I will get another dolly for it. I love the splayed legs at the bottom. It's really a pretty piece of machinery. It runs fantastic. I mean, obviously I've replaced the bearings and the blades, and it has practically a new motor, so of course it should work well. But still, it's a great tool, and it really has some flair. So the next project is probably going to be back to the main project, which is the 1913 Mets. I'm going to have to start taking some of the wood apart and doing final fits on it, and then be sealing that and painting it as well. Then after that comes off, we'll get back to work on the chassis, take the chassis back apart. Everything has to be media blasted again, painted, and start putting those things back on.